Good morning, everyone. It is Saturday, March the 13th, 2021. It is currently 11:01 a.m. Central Time. I'm here at Victory Baptist Church, and right here next to me on this table is a copy of The Imitation of Christ by Thomas à Kempis, and I have it open to chapter 21, Book 1, Chapter 21. Remember, the Imitation of Christ by Thomas à Kempis is broken into different books. We're still in Book 1. I know we've been doing this, it feels like for like a year, but we've been working on this slowly but surely. I know it's taking a long time, but that's okay. We're in Chapter 21 on the Contrition of Heart. Contrition of Heart, Thomas à Kempis. I'm not going to go review everything that we covered in Part 2 of Contrition of the Heart. You should go listen to it. It's only, it's about 18 minutes long, So definitely go listen to it. I think it'll be beneficial. But I think we've been looking at some very important information and some very convicting information, and hopefully this study has been beneficial to you. I hope this study has been beneficial to you. I just think this is such a classic book. And I don't agree with all of the theology in it, and I'm not saying that you should agree with all the theology in it, but it's such a classic book that we should at least make ourselves aware of it because it's influenced so many Christians' lives. And so we're doing our best to understand what's going on. But we're dealing with the idea of the contrition of heart. Contrition of heart. And I think I'll do this. I didn't intend to do this, but let's do this. Let's make sure we remind ourselves. Give me 1 second. I'm going to look this up really quick. Give me 1 second. I'm opening up my iPad here because this is where I have my dictionary. Let's go here. I'm going to go to Google and let's look at contrition. Contrition is defined as the state of feeling remorseful and penitent. The state of feeling remorseful and penitent. All right? That you and I as a Christian, we need to experience this contrition of the heart, this ever-present awareness of our own sinfulness, of our own failings, our own shortcomings, and we have to be more aware of our sin than the sins of anybody else. We need to be more bothered by our sins, more aware of our sins. We don't talk about everyone else's sins. If we're going to talk about sin, we'll talk about our own sin, all right? That's what we need. We need this true contrition of the heart, because contrition of the heart brings about true humility, and we need to remain truly humble. All right. Now, we're here. I'm just going to go back to the end. I'm going to go back to the paragraph we ended on in part 2, and then we're just going to jump in. I'm not going to spend a lot of time reviewing, but that kind of gets you set up and you're ready. So if you have a copy of The Imitation of Christ by Thomas à Kempis, this would be a good time to open it. If you do not have a copy, listen carefully. Now, that means you have to rely on my reading. And if there's one thing I'm not good at, is public reading. All right, I'm horrible at reading. When it comes to public reading, because I read so quickly. I can, like, you give me a book, I can fly through a book in no time. But it's almost like a speed reading kind of thing, and that is not conducive to good public reading. Because I jumble words. My mind, I'm already like 3 sentences beyond what I'm trying to read. I've got to learn to slow down and try to be more, very specific, methodical in my reading, so it will benefit you. So I apologize for my lack of good reading, but get a copy of The Imitation of Christ by Thomas à Kempis. I think we even gave away copies at the beginning of this series. So, but yeah, and we still need to give away. There's some other books we need. There's some book giveaways we need to work on. We need to do that here shortly. I've got to dedicate some time to doing that. But here we go. You ready? This Saturday morning, a rainy West Texas. I don't know what it's like where you are. It's a nice, warm, rainy day here in West Texas. But here we go. We're going to spend some time. I'm here in the sanctuary of Victory Baptist Church. It's empty. It's just you and I, right? We're gonna work on the Imitation of Christ together. If you're listening to me live, hey, let me know if you've got a copy. If you got a copy of the book, let me know you have a copy of the book. And if you have any questions about anything, let's jump in. Are you ready? Here we go. The chapter 21, Contrition of the Heart, Imitation of Christ, Thomas à Kempis. Here is the paragraph we stopped on last time, and I'll start with it. Here we go. Strive manfully one habit is vanquished of another. So we have to strive, and as he describes it, in a manful way to basically get rid of one bad habit, to fight one habit, to vanquish it. If you can let others alone in their works, they likewise shall gladly let you alone in yours. If you can leave other people alone, they'll most likely leave you alone. Now, this probably, again, you've got to remember Thomas à Kempis' writing. This writing was primarily, I think, for the monks in the monastery where he was at and the religious order that he was a part of. Well, okay, we get into his religious order was a little different than other religious orders, but we won't get into that history. You can go back and look at we studied that history. But I think it's more like, hey, you don't need to be worrying about them. They won't be worrying about you. All right? Busy not yourself in matters of others. Stop right there. Stop busying yourself with other people's lives. Stop busying yourself with other people's lives, actions, difficulties, trials, tribulations. In other words, stay out of everyone else's business. Stay out of everyone else's business. We spend so much time talking about other people. How much time a day do you spend talking about other people, discussing other people's issues, their lives, their family, their children, their marriage? How much time do you come home from work talking about everyone you work with and how they worked, what they did, what they said? We spend so much time focusing on other people. Stop doing it. Now, I told you in the last time that he almost seems to he goes from contrition of the heart and he kind of takes a detour. We're still calling this the contrition of the heart because that's the chapter that we're in. So that's why we're calling that. But he almost kind of takes a detour from that subject. But I'm going to try to connect it back to the subject. You can't have, one of the things that will distract you from maintaining true spiritual humility and true spiritual contrition is where you distract yourself from the reality of yourself by focusing on the reality of everyone else. So if you're so focused on everyone else's realities and their shortcomings, you won't have any contrition because you're not looking to yourself. He makes it very clear. And I'm going to read it again. It's just to me, it's such a simple, there's nothing profound here, but it's a powerful reminder. Let me read it to you again. Busy not yourself in matters of others. Neither entangle yourself with the affairs of your superiors. Now, clearly this is dealing with the monastery. Hey, stop entangling yourself with the affairs of the superiors. The superiors have the things they're supposed to do. You have the things you're supposed to do. Just worry about the things you're supposed to do. I'll give you an example. This is a practical example. When I was placed in a pretty awkward situation, all right? When my military career ended, because of everything dealing with anthrax and I was going to be medically retired. And then I had to wait. I was going to have to wait. We didn't know how long it was going to take. It ended up taking 2 years for the VA to ultimately give me my disability. It took forever, which was really frustrating. But my commander was great. She was like, look, you've been here. You've done all of this. Everyone here loves your work. You've got a lot to contribute. So like, hey, thumbs up. You've done wonderful. You've done great. And I'm like, thank you so much for that. My military career is over. I don't know what I'm going to do. She's like, well, you're not going to do anything. You're going to stay right here. You're going to work as a contractor. I need a resume from you within like 24 hours. And there was a man in the church who basically helped me write my resume. To this day, I'm grateful for him. I would not have gotten the job. He got me my resume. He literally wrote it for me perfectly. I handed it to my commander. She was so impressed with it. So I'm so thankful for that. And then she's like, okay, I'm going to send this in. You're going to be given the job. Your job, you're going to be in charge of the appointment line. I'm like, okay, I can do that. I can work the appointment line. I know how to do that. She's like, okay. And now the appointment line's had some major issues, and I'm going to need you to do some fixing of these issues. I'm like, okay, I'm ready for the challenge. I'm just thankful. And she was really cool because she knew that because of the all the seizures and neurological problems I was having because of everything with the anthrax vaccine, we could go all day about everything that happened. She was really cool. Basically, if I didn't feel well, I could leave at any time. She was still going to pay me for the whole day. I mean, it was like a blessing beyond blessing. The fact that the commander did all this for me was amazing. But she gave me the best situation I could be where I could still have money to provide for my family because my church could not provide for me. So I was going to have to find another job. So the commander did everything that she could, and she said, tomorrow morning you need to be in the lobby here on the second floor in the primary care clinic, and you need to be and just be ready to go. And so I arrived, and I'm like, oh, who? There was like three other military members who were a lower rank than I was at that time. Now I was getting ready to transition to becoming a civilian, but they were people who had worked with me and for me in the past. And I'm like, okay, good, all right. And I'm like, what are y'all doing here? I'm like, don't know. We were told by the commander to be here at 6 a.m. And I'm like, I know what's going on. So we just sat there. I'm like, we didn't know what was going on. It was weird. And all of a sudden the commander walks by and said, come with me, all of you. And we're like, what? So now it's around 7 a.m. We walk down the hall. We go into the appointment line. Now the appointment line at that time was staffed by, was it three females, maybe 4 females, 3 or 4 females. And they're the ones who work the appointment line. So we walk in and the commander looks at all of them and says, and you talk about an awkward experience, you're all fired. Pack up your stuff. You're going to be escorted off the base. Your time is over. Get up and get out. And they're looking at us. We're looking at them, and they're like, okay, Trevor, you're going to be in charge. You're going to be working at that desk. And then put the other troops in the other desk and said, the appointment line is about to open. Y'all take over. Now, we had no training. It was up to me to get all that. Like, the rest of those troops were looking at me like, what do we do? I'm like, I see, we're going to figure this out, guys. I promise you, we'll figure this out. So we had to take over. Now, what does this have to do with what he just said? Not busying yourself with the affairs of others. Here was the problem. The girls that had been working, the women, I shouldn't call them girls, the women who were working in the appointment line, they had a big problem. See, in the appointment line, you were behind a locked door and everyone was to leave you alone. They were not to bother you, right? And your job was just to make those appointments, telephone consults, to do those things. And they were civilians. They were civilians. So really, they shouldn't have worried about what anybody was doing outside of that door, but they did. They caused so much trouble. Like they would, let's say they had to transfer a call to, say, the OBGYN clinic, right? They would transfer the call, and they say nobody would answer the phone immediately. Instead of just trying to help that patient, like, okay, wait a minute, you need something OBGYN? You know what? Nobody is answering the phone. Let me take a message. I'll walk it over there. Like, just take the responsibility. No. They would either tell the patient, hey, you're going to have to call back. I can't help you right now. And then they would call and file a complaint with someone that, hey, someone's not at the desk at the OBGYN clinic. Not having a clue why the person's not at the desk, they would just say the person's not there. They would also, at times, open the door to the appointment clinic and just kind of look in the hallway. And if they saw anyone what they felt was leaving early, they then would file a complaint and call someone's supervisor and say, hey, they left early. They left early. They were getting involved in everyone's business. They were worried about when people were leaving, what time people, they would call someone's supervisor to say they showed up late. Because where the appointment line was overlooked part of the parking lot, and if they saw someone showing up late, they would call someone's supervisor to say, hey, that person got here late. They were like in everyone's business, right? Instead of just worrying about themselves, they started worrying about what everyone was doing in the entire hospital, even though they had no power, no jurisdiction, no authority. It was none of their business. So I took over the appointment line. Now I had I had troops with them, but then they were there temporarily. It was now my job to hire civilians. Because the whole thing was going to be, once again, manned by civilians, all right? And that's usually how the appointment line worked. And I'm like, okay, so I hired civilians. And again, it was all women. It was all women. I was the only guy there. And I had to have a meeting. And my meeting was this. You see where we are? We're in the appointment line. You see outside that door? What happens outside that door is none of your concern. It's none of your business. If we walk out of this door at noon to go to lunch and the entire building is empty because everyone got to go home early, it doesn't matter. We don't complain about it because we work under we're a civilian contractor. If the military wants to let everyone go home, they don't have to let us go home. We work for a civilian contractor. It's not your business. If you see someone showing up late, it's none of your business. If you see someone leaving early, it's none of your business. If someone's not working the front desk at the primary care clinic, don't worry about it. Do what we can. Take care of the patient. We'll give the information. We're not here to worry about anybody else and what they're doing. If what they're doing begins to impact us, you tell me how it's impacting us, and if necessary, I will go out there and I will fight and I will deal with it. But we don't get involved in their business. Stay out of their business. It's none of your business. Stay out of your business. It's none of your business. Now, he's referring to this in the context of a monastery. Hey, don't concern yourself with the affairs of your superiors. Don't. Just stay out of it. Do your job. Guess what? As Christians, we need to have that kind of mentality. It's not, why do we worry so much about what everyone else is doing? Why do we get involved in everyone else's business? We've got an opinion in how people raise their kids. We've got an opinion in how they live out their lives as a married couple. We have an opinion about, everyone's actions. We've got an opinion about other people's appearances, what clothes they wear, how their hair looks. It's none of your business. Stay out of it. I think we spend all of our time running around getting ourselves mixed up in the affairs of other people to simply distract us from the reality of ourselves, our own failures, our own shortcomings, which then takes away from having any true contrition of the heart. Stop doing it. So I had to make it an absolute demand with my people. We don't worry about what's going on. And as soon as I start hearing them talk about someone, I'm like, stop. If you're working for me, we're not going to reduce our conversations to the lowest level of conversation, which is talking about other people. Let's move it to talking about something else. Let's talk about ideas, thoughts, something important. But gossip, slander, because you're busying yourself with everyone else's business, and it's none of your business. All right? But I'm going to put it in the context of this chapter. That keeps you from having any contrition of the heart because you're never looking into your life. You're never looking at yourself. You know what you do? Listen to me. Listen to me carefully. All right? Now, I know this is really distracting us from advancing in this chapter, but this is important. I want you to hear me. Listen to me carefully, because I think it's just such a profound principle that I don't think we think about this principle enough. The reason we spend so much time worrying about what everyone else is doing is because it gives us it gives us a point of reference and contrast. In other words, if I look at everyone else and all of their shortcomings and all their fallings, I have a point of comparison. I can compare myself to all of their shortcomings and all of their failures and all of their problems, and it can make me feel better about myself. But we're not there to busy ourselves with other people so that we can compare ourselves to other people. Stop comparing and worrying yourself to other people and compare yourself to the holy God of the universe, and you'll feel true weight of contrition, and you'll feel true humility because you realize you're not as smart as you think you are, as good as you think you are, and you'll be broken. But when you spend all of your time worrying about what everyone else is doing, what everyone else is saying, then you've got a point of reference to compare yourself to make yourself feel better. We spend a lot of our time, social media, it really is spending a lot of time looking at everyone else's life, worrying about what everyone else is doing. Who cares? Stop worrying about everyone else. Stop being a busybody. All right? Stop getting yourself, that's my pencil rolling across the desk. Stop getting yourself in the affairs of other people. All right? Here we go. So I'm going to read this whole thing again because this is a powerful little section. I know it seems like, I know when you read this, you would just read through this and be done with it, but that's why we're working through it together, right? Because then we can talk about it. All right, here we go. If you can let others alone in their works, they likewise shall gladly let you alone in yours. Busy not yourself in matters of others, neither entangle yourself with the affairs of your superiors. Have an eye to yourself first, and especially admonish your own self before all your beloved friends. Admonish yourself before your beloved friends. And you may not be admonishing them to their face, but you may do a lot of admonishing them while you're talking about them to other people. Stop it. Stop it. It's that simple. It will help you spiritually. Look, one of the things that stops you from spiritual progress is a preoccupation with everyone else's life and being worried about what everyone else is doing. Focus on yourself. Now, he continues this idea of focusing on other self by going kind of in a different direction here, right? If you have not the favor of men, be not grieved at it. Hey, if other people don't like you, don't be grieved. If other people seem to dislike you, don't be grieved. If other people seem to hate you, do not be grieved. Do not let that stop you. Look, you can be preoccupied with what everyone else is doing, and you can also be preoccupied with what everyone else thinks about you. Preoccupation with others in either direction, worrying about what they are doing, looking at all of their failures, making all your judgments about them, or being preoccupied with how other people view you, both of them are detrimental to your spiritual life. There are lots of people who think a lot of negative things about me. Some of them rightly so, because of mistakes and failures I've had in my own life. But you know what? I can't spend my life worrying about that. I cannot. You can't spend your life worrying about how everyone else thinks about you. He goes, but take this to heart, that you keep yourself so warily and circumspectly as it becomes the servant of God and a devout man to behave. In other words, you can't worry about what everyone else thinks about you, but you can focus on trying to do your best to live out your life as a godly person. You can do that. You can't change what you did yesterday, but you can focus on tomorrow. It is better, oftentimes, and safer that a man should not have many consolations in this life. Now, that's an interesting verse. They have Psalm 76:5 here in my translation. They don't quote it. They just have it in parentheses. Let me look at it. Sometimes the verses they have here don't make any sense, but let's look at this one. Psalm 76:5. Psalm 76:5. Psalm 76:5. Give me a second. Here we go. Psalm 76 disappeared from my Bible. Here we go. Psalm 76:5. The stout-hearted are spoiled. They have slept their sleep, and none of the men of might have found their hands. That's an interesting verse. Psalm 76:5. All right, let me look at it I'm going to get a different translation. Sometimes the way, especially when you go back in church history, sometimes the way they quote and use a scripture, sometimes you're just really dumbfounded by what they do with them. Okay, but we won't get into that. Psalm 76:5. Here we go. Psalm 76:5. But you get a little glimpse of this even reading a book like this. Psalm 76:5. The valiant lie plundered. They sleep their last sleep. Not one of the warriors can lift his hands. Yeah, not quite sure I understand why he's quoting the scripture, but he does. We'll just focus on, instead of trying to figure out how he's using the scripture and what to do with it, could probably take a little bit of work. It is interesting. He says, it's better oftentimes and safer that a man should not have many consolations in this life. It seems like he's saying it's better sometimes in our life when things are not going well for us. Let's do this. Let's look up the word consolations. Let's look at this. All right? Let's do this. Consolations. Comfort. The comfort received by a person after a loss or a disappointment. The comfort received by a person, consolation, the comfort received by a person after a loss or disappointment. All right, so what he seems to be saying that sometimes it's better that we don't receive any consolation, even after suffering a great disappointment. That it's sometimes better in our Christian life not to receive consolation. He goes, especially such as are according to the flesh, but that we have no divine consolations at all, or very seldom feel them. The fault is ours, because we seek not after consolation of heart, nor do altogether forsake vain and outward comforts. All right, so now he's turning his attention here that sometimes what we do is we seek out consolation that appeals to the flesh. Again, we got to remember, sometimes the way Thomas Kempis writes, at times it can be very frustrating, because you think he's really established this idea about consolation, about, as he says, contrition of the heart. Make sure I get the right title here. Contrition of the heart. And then it seems like he's departed from that theme. And sometimes his writing is just kind of like a stream of consciousness, like he's just writing different ideas. And each idea could become like its own thought to meditate on. And that's the way I've always approached the book, is like, okay, here's this thought. Just stop and let's meditate on this. So he's now getting into this idea of consolation. And then he's going to continue. He's going to continue the idea of consolation. So we're going to stop. We're going to stop right here. And then next time we'll build this out on how this consolation may appeal, how this may relate to contrition. How does consolation relate to contrition? But in the meantime, we'll stop and we'll just focus on these ideas. We'll focus on these ideas. As a Christian, one of the things that can be detrimental to your spiritual life is a preoccupation with other people. You can so focus on other people that you do not focus on yourself. Therefore, this distracts you from having any true contrition or any true humility, because you're so preoccupied with everyone else. The danger of being preoccupied with everyone else is it gives you another standard to compare yourself by. You compare yourself to other people. Don't do that. Stop being preoccupied with other people. It's not beneficial. And at the same time, do not be grieved about what other people think about you. You cannot be preoccupied with what everyone thinks about you, because that will be detrimental to your spiritual life as well. So I'm going to stop. That's really not what I intended. I didn't intend there. This chapter is taking longer than I thought, but he really, if you read this chapter, you'll see what I mean. It's like contrition. I'm going to go back to the beginning. If you will make this is the beginning of this chapter. If you will make any progress, keep yourself in the fear of God and affect not too much liberty. He talks about contrition. All of this is about the fear of God and contrition. And it goes and it follows this idea. And then all of a sudden it changes dramatically to about not worrying about yourself, what other people do. And then it's jumped into now consolation. And in the next paragraph, consolation. But then he returns back to contrition. So we're going to have to connect that consolation with contrition. We're going to have to do that next time. I'm going to connect the preoccupation with other people to contrition, that our preoccupation of people turns the focus off ourselves, turns our focus off of God, and then this destroys contrition and humility, because now we're looking at other people as the standard. We're looking to other people, and we can always find people that are worse off than us, that are more messed up than us, and then we spend all our time talking about them and slandering them, and we're actually only hurting ourselves spiritually. All right, I think that's a good place to stop. I'll stop right there. All right, you can give me your thoughts on all of this by emailing me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. Thomas Kempis, The Imitation of Christ. Still got a long ways to go, but we'll try to finish this up in the next session. All right, everyone, thank you for listening. Have a great day. God bless.